everyone. Thank you for being here for our seminar. Today we have Professor Sridhar Tayur from the Tepper School of Business at Mellon. He is a fourth distinguished researcher and a university professor of operations management. I know him mostly from his work on organ transplant and because I used his book on healthcare analytics in my class last fall. We built and work on supply chain management, inventory problems, recently in quantum integer programming. He is an INFORMS fellow, he's an MSOM fellow, he's a member of the National Academy of Engineering, and he's also one of the few people I know in the ORMS field who career recommended that has launched several businesses, which I think is what he'll be talking a little bit about today. So please join me when the speaker.
Thank you for inviting me. I expect most talks focus on one paper and are somewhat technical. Here I'm focusing on maybe 2 or 3 papers and providing an overview of, I suppose, several years of my life, but also focusing on how I rolled it out in practice rather than how I analyzed it for paper publication. Okay, so maybe it's a bit of a relief from the others in the computer. So you can take this as a little break. In Indian movies, they're so long, there's an intermission, right? So, right? 3.5 hours and somewhere around 1.5 hours, right? You get an intermission just before a song or something like that. So think of this as the intermission. You have serious speakers and then you have. So I chose this topic because DSI, a Decision Sciences Journal, I guess editor-in-chief is Kalluri, and he had emailed me and said, hey, Sridhar, do you mind writing an article for us on organ transplantation? And so that's the article link I had sent that you might get. The video. And so I thought since the article had just got accepted and it's going through the production process, why don't I use this article for I also noticed when I got the invitation that some of you do healthcare, so obviously, and some of you do market design. So this was not going to be such an outlandish topic. I was invited to give a talk at Carson a couple of years back, but it was on Zoom because of COVID. And then I did quantum integer programming. So I could have been really lazy and just use those slides, but I decided actually to create some new. This is a very niche area, this US transplantation thing. Most people in the world don't know about this. And I didn't know of this until 2010. I think most people in the field don't know about this. But it appears that this has a lot of papers. A lot of people have worked on organ transplantation. I would say since maybe the late 90s. I'm thinking Larry Wine and Stefanos Zenios might have been some of the early folks who have papers in OR and management science and things like that on organ transplantation. I think one more of Zenios' student, maybe Xiaoming Su, also out of Stanford, probably did some work. So this would be deceased donor transplantation, which is you take organs and tissues from people who have died. Okay, that's going to be my focus. In parallel to that, in economics, Al Roth and company, under the auspices of market design, have looked at living donor especially the New England Kidney Exchange thing. So in some sense, you can think of organ transplantation as having 2 pillars, an econ pillar of living donations and kidney exchange through Al Roth. And now, of course, we have Vitaya Flaggy and people like that from the OR1 community over there. And then the deceased donor side, starting from, let's say, Wine, Zenios, and so on and so forth. Okay, so those are kind of 2 pillars. I'm in the second pillar. And as I was telling you, I'm a late entrant to the field. So the field has been around for a while, and I'm like a Johnny come lately who showed up around 2010, largely because I knew I was selling a software company in a year or two. I was already in discussions with SAP, and I knew that that portion of my life was coming to an end, and I was open to doing something different. The only rule was anything but supply chain. Okay, so I had 10 years of supply chain academia, writing papers and producing PhD students. Then 10 years of being the CEO of SmartOps and building the company and selling to SAP. And I felt 20 years on supply chain, or let's say a total of 80 years was more than enough. And then I was having dinner with Barry Shata, who was in this business, who has been in this business. And at dinner, he mentioned that he works on organ transplant, and that was the first time I heard of this field. Okay, and over dinner, he told me that the most important problem that was intractable was that there is geographic disparity in waiting times. Okay. And so why is there geographic disparity? Because the United States is divided into 11 regions, and each of these regions is subdivided into something called donor service centers. I believe now it's 56 or 57, but let's say about that. And think of each of these as almost independently run things. Okay, and so you could be living here, and your wait time could be 4 years. But here the wait time could be 6 years, here the wait time could be 10 years, and somewhere here the wait time could be 2 years. Okay, it's just a reality. Okay. One way to think about it is there are 58 queues. Okay, and guys like Steve Jobs was over here, right, just before he got iPad, and he knew he was going to die, right, without a transplant. And his wife, Laureen, used to go and check evidently, as the book says, every night. Hey, what's the wait time? What's the median wait time? And finally found that somewhere in Memphis, Tennessee, wherever Tennessee is, the wait times were less. But she multiple listed him in 12 places. And that was possible because he had a private jet. I mean, he had a Gulfstream day or night. And so anytime he got a phone call, his pilots are there. He would get on the Gulfstream. He can go to Memphis, get his transplant, come back, and he create his iPad. Right? So I knew that story. And so when Barish said that this geographic disparity was something that couldn't be fixed because nobody wants to share organs, because a lot of the money is made in the transplant and nobody wants to give the organs away. I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically democratize people. I'm going to bring what Steve Jobs can do as a billionaire to average you and me. Okay. After my talk, which was about SmartOps at Kellogg's, I was flying back home, and I called him, the next day to say, hey, thank you for inviting me, etc., etc. I have this idea, right? And he was very quiet. If you know Barish, how many of you know Barish? Right? Very quiet, very polite, right? Very Turkish, very respectful gentleman. So I said, look, if it's stupid, you can tell me. I take direct feedback. Okay? You don't want to be subtle with me because you'll pass it. Okay. I gave the hint and all that, it won't work. Okay. If you want me to see something, forward it on my head and say, Sridhar, okay, maybe I'm different. So I told him, if it's stupid, just say it's okay. He said, no, it's not stupid, it's genius. I said, really? He said, yes. I said, okay. Then he hooked me up with John Roberts, who's the head of UNOS. And everybody thought this was the genius, and then so on. So I think one of you was asking me, how did I get into organ transplant? How did I do that? It was on a whim. I actually thought it was, I just made it up. And the next thing I know, everybody thinks it is the most intelligent, imaginative, disruptive, genius idea in 20 years. Harvard wants to write a case, and New England Journal of Medicine is running an article, and Forbes has an article, Atlantic has a profile, CBS News is hitting it all over. Obama calls me to the White House, and I'm saying, really? Okay. So trust me, if this is surprising to you, it is, imagine my life, right? When I made up some stuff, and the next thing you know, it is the things. Once I got into it, I noticed that while that is a problem, there is actually the larger problem is this. So I told Barry, this is actually not the most important problem. This is the problem, but this is actually a worldwide problem. So really, if you want to make a difference in life, you have to do this. Okay, so once I did this, I started thinking about this. So today's talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about this, and if time permits, a few others. Now, when I did OrganJet and Nudge video, I had not heard of anything called market design. Okay, today it's a thing. Okay, after I did this and I met Al Roth and so on and so forth, I learned about market design because that is how Al Roth views me. Right? It's not how I actually viewed myself. Right? And so for the first time in writing this article is the time I'm using the word market design. Or maybe the second time because there was one more in my article just a few months back. Right? So this is almost like a revisionist slide. This presentation in 2016 would not have this stuff. Right? But this is now what market design is. There are lots of papers that you can see. The opening paper was with Barish. Anton is a transplant surgeon, and he was in the Feynman School of Medicine. And we wrote the management science paper. Boom. Two things I was very happy about. First is the management science paper, which is always a good thing. Second, they actually allowed us to keep the company name in the title of the paper. I think the first and only time in the history of management science. And then when Peter Ubel wrote it in New England Journal of Medicine, he actually had OrganJet in New England Journal of Medicine article, and he told me it is the first time in 100 years of New England Journal of Medicine that they allowed a startup name to be written in the article. So, you know, that's a thing, right? And of course, winning the Pierskalla Prize. So my general philosophy in life has been this. As a professor, we write papers. Right? We dispense with advice. We don't know who's listening, who's acting upon it, but we're dispensing. In India, we say we're giving yarn, right? Swami, Guru, right? They're sprinkling wisdom, right? Wherever we go, right? Winning awards, getting promoted. But the reason I chose to do OR for my PhD, or the mechanical engineering, was I saw the promise of mathematical analysis to improve actual. In fact, that's the only reason I did it. What I'm saying is, I am not a mathematician. I'm not trying to do better mathematics for the sake of doing better mathematics. I mean, Ramanujan and all that is a separate story. Okay, we're born in the same town, but that's the end of the comparison. That's fine. Maybe that and we're both vegetarian, okay? That's where it stops. After that, he's a genius and, you know, I'm not, right? And that goes on. He has no children, I have children. So, right, he died at 32. I did not die at 32, right? He died in poverty and lived quite well. So all the separating plane occurs at that point. But partially, I was driven by the fact that it was important to actually do so. So you'll see this. So once I heard there's something called market design, I had to read up on what is market design. Okay, so I got Al's book and said, what is market design? Right? So evidently market design recognizes that well-functioning markets depend on detailed rules. Okay. Again, many of your market design is not new to you. But for an OM guy, this is new news. Okay. Right? And then I say, okay, what do market designers do? They try to understand these rules and procedures well enough to improve and enhance them or build market. So this is actually a direct quote from Al Roth's paper. So now I can see why he thinks I did this, because this is what I did. Right? When I started OrganJet, I was interested in it because although social enterprises had been around for a while, I was quite unaware of it because I was so busy running a software company. You and I have talked a little bit about my 10 years. See, when I was running a software company, I was running a software company. You're a CEO. I mean, you're making deals. You know, That your head is there. You're not thinking grand thoughts. You're thinking, how do I close this deal? Right? So for 10 years, that's what I was doing, right? Building a product, increasing sales, going into Europe, creating SAP partnership, boom, 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 looking at growth margin, quarter by quarter net income, right? Plus minus venture capital fund, which means I needed to get an exit, I needed the IRR. I mean, I was running the business. And finally, when it was ready to sell, I go up and say, hey, what's happening in the world? Right? And what's happening in the world is there's something called a social enterprise, and I really liked it. I said, are you telling me that a person with business and technical and skills like that can repurpose that, not to make money for its own sake, but to make money to put back into the social purpose? Are you telling me this is a thing? And they said, yes. I said, I want to do this. I want to do this. Right? And so I thought, aha, why don't I make OrganJet this? Okay, that's what it is, right? Of course, while I was running SmartOps, I started reading stuff, something that we don't usually do. Right? Right? A fellow called Joseph Schumpeter, right? He's the guy who kind of recognized that entrepreneurship was a thing. Right? It was the engine of energy, right? And this is him. So you say, why, who are these people? Right? The joy of creating, of getting things done. I love this sentence. Of simply exercising one's energy. This is it. This is the only reason. If it happens to save lives, fantastic. If it happens to make money and make inventories better and supply chain, it's okay. But that is actually not the primary intent of the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is almost like an artist. You see? The entrepreneur is a driven man because that is what he is. You can't help it. You can't help it. You have to go around finding difficulties, changes for the sake of changing, delights in ventures. Right? And I said, yes, that's me. That's me. That's me. I'm not a mathematician. No. I'm not a serious professor who speaks calmly, slowly, takes glasses off, right? Talks like this. No. I know many times they're disappointed because you look at this resume and you say, oh, he must be a serious man. I could learn something from him. No, you will learn nothing from him. Okay? Because this is who I am. See, neither consideration of effort nor satiation of hedonic needs steals his master action. You're telling me that I don't need the money, I don't need the salary, I'm giving away money. Why do it? Because I can't help it. Right? So that's what this is. And if you think about it, this was 20 years. I put this slide because I want you to see the parallels. Right? You pick a topic. Pick a topic. Pick any topic. I had picked multi-stage inventories because that was hot in the 90s. And spent 20 years, right? Write papers, win some awards, write a book, start a company, somebody writes a case, do exec, give talks, give keynote, some magazines write about you. Finally, somebody says, hey, Sridhar, for your 20 years, right? Right? Having done this, I decided to start and said, I'll simply pick that and run it through. I'll just run it through again. I'll do the whole thing again. In Tamil, we should say chumma, very simply. So I'm just going to talk about this part. Okay. So typically I get emails. So although I'm keeping a very light-hearted view, I don't want you to forget that the people I'm helping are very scared and they're about to die. Okay, yes, sir. Right, as I wrote in the article, I hope my playfulness in writing doesn't mask the seriousness of the issue. Okay. In some sense, because the issue is so serious, I am talking in a light-hearted way. Right? So there are 90,000 people in the United States on their transplant waiting list, waiting for it. Unfortunately, compounding this problem,
is the fact that the likelihood of a person getting a transplant depends whether you live in Boston or whether you live in Pittsburgh. In Boston, the median waiting time is over 5 years. And it's quite likely that you will pass away before you get the transplant. In Pittsburgh, the wait time may only be 2 years. OrganJet alone will bring the access to people down from the wealth of, let's say, Steve Jobs, to somebody in the top 20 or 30 percentile. The additional challenge now is, how do we get the same access to people who are not in the top 30 percentile? And that is why I created something called Guardian Wings. Guardian Wings is a non-profit subsidiary of OrganJet. So OrganJet can help people who can afford this service. But what about the other segments? Therefore, I started looking into mechanisms that would allow a for-profit like OrganJet to also have the ability to have a non-profit like Darden Case. OrganJet allows a median American the ability to multi-list in a place that is 2 or 3 hours of jet flying time from their home. I never thought operations research would land up helping people in terms of saving their life. So to have a contract hybrid structure and be able to use my skills of fractional test scheduling to solve a problem is very, very important. Tepper has always been a great place for me to conduct research. I give credit to the culture of Carnegie Mellon and the culture of Tepper. It is unlikely that I would have been able to do something like this in a school district.
So this is Tepper advertisement of Tepper. Okay, that's why they created this video for me for free. So, so who created this video? The Tepper School of Business. So then I said, okay, except the last sentence, I'm going to use it for advertising OrganJet, but the rest of it is to advertise Tepper School of Business to get faculty and students in, right? So that's how this came to be. So what is OrganJet? It has two services. First is you should know where to list. So if you go and do organjet.com and go to patient services, there will be a link. You can put your zip code, you can choose kidney or liver, you press a button, and it'll tell you here are the 3 or 5 closest locations for you to do. So what took Laureen Powell, Steve Jobs' wife, I don't know, 6 months to do, is free and it's 0.01. Okay, Wired magazine in 2013 called it a top 10 app. And the title was, want a kidney? There's an app for it. Okay, that was the answer. Now the second is, how do you get there? Right. Now what happens is, when you decide you want to list somewhere, suppose you want to Mayo Clinic, because Mayo in Rochester is a great clinic. I'll show you an example from somebody in Boston who were right by stand about that. They won't list you unless they know you can get them. For Steve Jobs, it's not a problem because he's like, dude, I have my own house. Okay, I'll get anywhere. Right? So then you can use OrganJet to say, no, OrganJet to get me there, list me. Okay. Now, when you actually get the call, you don't have to take OrganJet. You could have moved there a week in advance or take a commercial flight. It doesn't matter. So half the people might just take a commercial flight or just move here. But at the time of listing, if you don't have this proof, you won't even get it. So it actually serves two purposes. It gives you the proof that you'll get there. And then if needed, you'll actually get it. That's good. So these are some flight patterns you can expect. Mostly the long wait times in the coast and short wait times in the middle. Okay, so you'll see basically flights. So this is an example. This was about 5:30 a.m. I think, or something. I call it 0 time. Typically, they get a call up my guys in OrganJet. We had a Learjet for them. So it's 20 to 50 miles at Mach 0.8. Lands, reach Mayo, get the transplant on 5:15. Next day, I mean, wife is fine, thank you very much. No. So this happens twice a week, 3 times a week, the last time. Like, what, 500 or 600 people got on their transplant.
What's the time limit in which you have to be there?
For liver, they want you to be there under 6 hours. For kidney, they allow you to be there at 12, but what happens is the quality of the kidney starts dropping. So they will do the transplant, but the post-transplant life may not be very long. So generally speaking, faster than it. But for liver, after 6, they won't even. So the quality of the liver, quality of the organ matters. Because, I mean, it's a life thing, right? And so you want to live 10, 15, 20 years, then every hour might give you a year.
Is it the alternate own the jets or?
No, so all jets, it's like Uber. So I didn't realize there was a company called Uber. It was founded in 2012. So when I first gave the talk at Harvard, a lot of the MBA students are like, "Oh, that's like Uber for private jets." I'm like, "What is Uber?" They said, "Oh, you haven't heard of Uber?" I said, "No." Like, why would I hear of Uber? Right? This is 2012, by the way. They weren't that famous. Okay. So yeah, so all the jets belong to somebody else. So in this country, there are 18,000 jets owned by private people with utilization less than 50%. There are a lot of very, very rich people in this country, okay, with jets. I know people with 2 or 3 themselves, okay. What they have is typically they'll have a private company that will have the jets and the pilots and all that in it. And when they are not using it, they will open it for commercial use. So most people who own jets usually don't put it in their name, they'll put it in a company name and it's managed. And so those are the people who are basically providing. There are 5,500 airports around the country where these jets can land. So you don't have to hit the major airports. That you might have driven on Minneapolis and you'll see a lot of smaller airports with smaller runways. I mean, the 747 won't land there, but a Learjet will. So I mean, this will land next to Rochester in Mayo.
You can guarantee the availability of the jet?
We don't guarantee. Right now, we have not had a problem. We usually get it in about 2.5. There are no guarantees. Because it's part one. In some sense, you can guarantee it, but what's the price? So if money is no object, sure. So we did one. He was a very wealthy Chinese businessman and wanted a jet, actually intercoastal jet. And usually I don't do that long. And there are only a few jets that can go without refueling all the way, Gulfstream being one of them. So when I got a call from his daughter, I said, "Well, if you want to go direct, G5 and I don't know, one-way ticket, maybe 40,000. He said, "Okay, we'll do a vitamin." It's a life story. So people who can afford it, they can get it. I try to keep it in about $15,000 range. I try to keep it around 8,000 to 10,000 a flying hour. It also allows it to be very good business for insurance companies because they can trade off the dialysis savings for kidneys. So I think that life. So I think you can get the jet if you're willing to pay a price. But if you want to keep it under 20K, for example, then it's also hard if it's ski season because every rich guy is taking a jet to Aspen. Right. So I don't know if you ever been to Aspen during ski season. The airport is so crowded, you can't even land your jet there. You'll have to go to Vail, land over there. So, during those times, obviously, there's fun.
Could you talk a little bit more about the insurance angle that you just mentioned?
Yeah, so I gave this talk and then some of the students who were in healthcare came and said, if you want to really scale something like this in this country, apart from people who are paying out of pocket, you need insurance. Right? I mean, insurance is how we all handle it. The question is what the business is, right, to be made. And the business case that was made was done at a project at Harvard Business School, 3 MBA students. Have you heard of the Professor Regina Herslinger? She teaches I think the most popular healthcare elective at Harvard Business School. Go read up on her. She was the first woman to be tenured at Harvard Business School. Okay, so she's MIT PhD economics, joined Harvard Business School in the 1970s. She told me this story. When she first got the job, her salary was 60% of the male. So she asked the dean, what the hell? He said, oh, we don't expect you to teach, so we're just giving you 60%. So she said, why can't I teach? She said, everybody in the class is male and they have never seen a female teacher, so we don't want to put a female in the class. I'm talking 1970s Harvard Business School. So she said, no, if you give me a job, give me a job. Don't give me the side job. Right? So finally, the dean said, okay, you can teach. He said, but can a senior male professor sit in the back of the room just in case? She said, do that to male young faculty? He said, no. And I said, why are you doing it for me? They said, look, I'm giving you all of this. Just give me a little. So she said, okay. Evidently, on the first day of class, a lot of MBA students caught up. That is how bad it was in the 1970s. She's MIT PhD. She's white. How come is she? Apparently, a lot of alums wrote to the dean and said, we are taking our money back. We're not giving you donations. That's how. Anyway, so she's now on the board of HCA. A lot of her MBA students are CEOs of companies, blah, blah, blah. So she runs an extremely popular MBA class, floor to ceiling kids sitting, people sitting on steps because the auditorium is full. Anyway, so she runs a project for students as a homework, and their project was make a business case for insurance for OrganJet. So those students created the business case, and it was the saving of dialysis. Dialysis is $120,000 a year. If you can multiple list and save 1 year, you pay the jet, you pay the $5,000 additional listing, the fees, but you save $120,000. Make the difference.
Most dialysis is paid for by the federal government, right? Like insurance covers it for the first.
Good. Actually, not most. After the first 3 years. But the first 3 years is paid by the private insurance. So private insurance is somewhat conflicted. That if I've already paid 2.5 years for this guy, and now I have to pay multiple listing, will I recoup it or not? So there was that incentive issue. But when they did the statistical analysis overall, they felt that as soon as somebody is going to get an analysis, let's train our people into it. So that is the case. So those are some of the things. If you read the paper, I do mention a little bit of those things. That's it. What happens then is the blue becomes less because the wait times are less in some places. And then in these blues become large because the wait times there go because people are flying into. The additional thing that happens is that places here were not harvesting some organs because they were below a certain quality, and the wait times here was low enough that they felt that people won't take it. But the same quality organs would be used here because here they are going to die. Right? But if these people are coming here, then some more organs will get harvested. So actually, the amount of supply goes up slightly. Okay, so they are also a solution. Actually. Right? You have made the worst person better off, and you've increased the overall number of things. Okay. So again, I didn't think of it like this because again, I'm not a philosopher. I bumped into Amartya Sen, and then I told him about this because I couldn't resist telling him about this. I mean, first of all, although he's 80 something, the man can very fast. Okay? And instantly he said, "Oh, John Rawls would have liked it so much." And John Rawls was his rising star. That is the nicest compliment anyone can give, right? Imagine a Nobel laureate telling you that his advisor, who is the greatest philosopher, American philosopher, would have liked it. And that's because of this. Basically, I've made is a min-max solution. I've minimized the maximum wait time and increased the number of hours. Okay, so this is an operationalization of Rawlsian philosophy. So very unwittingly, I have done things that are considered very profound. That's what I'm trying to say. So when you read this and you think Sridhar is a profound person, no, it just so happens that unwittingly, I have done things that are very profound. Now back to the real world. So that's good. But the problem is, most people, right? Because there is no, right? So what do most people do? They say do first person consent. Right? Go to DMV, become an organ donor. Right? I have seen two problems with it. One, suppose you take your 18-year-old son and tell him to go become an organ donor, which is fine. But then what? You want him to die now? I think it is macabre, right? So, right, even if you become an organ donor now, and you want this person to live a very good life, this is not going to help you for another 30, 40, 50 years. Right? So all the focus on first person consent, and you know, Aaron and I used to work and he has done a lot of work in improving first person consent through this, framing and so on and so forth. I said, it's macabre. Okay? I'm an organ donor, but I don't want it. Right? So don't you think you should look at all the people who are dead, who are not organ donors, right? And wonder, how can they get those organs? And what happens in this country is you can ask the next of kin. It's called the second person consent. So I said, are you kidding me? Shouldn't the actual focus be on increasing second person consent and not first person consent? You're like, wow, that's brilliant. And I'm like, seriously, you didn't think about this? You want a random supply chain dude walking around to come up with this? So then I asked, why is it so hard to get second person consent? It's very hard because one, you're grieving, your brother just died, somebody comes to you and says, I want organs, you say, right. And he's not a donor, so maybe there's a signal in what is going on, so things can get violent. Even if they don't get violent. People say, well, I don't know. I have to talk to my other brother. I have to talk to my mom. They're not here. They're coming like in 6 hours, and they're not going to come here. They're going to meet us over there. So you can talk to me, but what do you want me to do? So, right. Or people say, I don't know. I'm Catholic. I don't know. Is organ donation okay for me? I don't know. I don't know. Right. Fourth, you're African American. You have deep distrust on the system, and Tuskegee experiment and so on and so forth. They're like, seriously? You expect me to donate organs to you? Right? So what will be the reason? More than half of second person consent is no. But when I look at the exit interviews and I look at those who said yes and those who said no, the idea I got was, how can we nudge those people who are not hard no? Sometimes the religious hard no. Coptic Christians, hard no. I think very, very Orthodox Jews, hard no. Okay? There's no nudging. That's a hard no. Then there are others, it could, right? That's the focus. Right? So then I said, why don't I create a small video that encapsulates why people say yes? For those Hispanics who said yes, when we interviewed them or who did the research said they had heard about it in their church from their priest. So the imprimatur was there, right? I mean, it has been sanctioned. Similarly, when African Americans said yes, it was because African American leaders in their community had brought it up. So what was needed was not somebody giving them general theory on why donation is good, but somebody they could trust who would tell that it is good. Now, how in God's name are you going to fly in a Catholic priest or a Black community leader in that ICU? You can't, but you can photograph, put it in the video. So I created this video. And we train people. So Matt is a donor coordinator. He'll go to the next of kin. Some of them may say yes. They may say yes. That's a 40% say yes. When they say no, they need time, but it's not hard no, I'm going to beat you up, but non-violent no. You say, hey, can you sleep? So this is the reality, exact. I like movies, so I wrote this and explained it. Okay. Okay, so this is happening. Right. So it was not a hard no. Right. So the guy could say, hey, can I send you a What we had done was every link in many of these places, it was on Qualtrics, we would know. Did you click it? How long did you watch it? How many people watched it? So we have all the steps. See a video?
My father had a massive stroke. He was on life support. And at one point, someone came up to us in the hospital and asked if we would donate my father's organs.
My daughter had passed away. Her name was Riley. She was 5 years old. The decision for organ donation came early in the process. And I think the timing for us was just something I couldn't comprehend.
My mother was very upset. How disrespectful. My husband's not even dead an hour and you're asking me this question. Ever since then, I've always thought about that. We could have helped so many people. And we were so stuck in our own grief that we didn't think about other people. And I know my dad would have liked that.
People mourn differently. They deal with trauma differently.
There really is no way you can become comfortable with the loss of a child.
We just knew that we had to keep this memory alive in some shape or form. The only way at that point I could think of was to donate his organ to someone.
Sometimes tragedy happens, but if you can find something good out of it, no telling new lives you can save.
It's not just giving a life, you're saving lives.
Oh, I'm so proud of my baby. She only lived to be 13 months, but she got to save 3 lives of 3 other children. Their mothers don't have to suffer like I had to suffer.
When my mom passed away, we decided that yes, she would want to give the gift of tissue as well. Her organs saved 3 people and her tissue enhanced the lives of over 43 others.
There's a lot of misunderstandings, unfortunately, in the faith communities. You know, we advocate for a lot of things, you know, the care of the poor and the sick, and this falls under that. There's no restrictions when it comes to faith, and I think that it shows way more your faith and your devotion to God, whatever God you worship, that you would say, well, how can I serve?
The best way to honor the memory that you have for anybody is to allow them to be a hero. And that's exactly how I view my donor.
There isn't a single day where we don't thank our donor family. That one decision of theirs literally changed our entire lives.
I feel really fortunate that he's helping and the quality of his life is so much better.
We all are here to help one another any which way we can.
You never want to lose anyone, but if you love them, a part of them is somewhere living, happy, and feeling grateful, because there is no greater gift than the gift of life.
They're not actors, they're actual people who donate. Right? So, fun part of the thing is I got a phone call. There's some woman called Jennifer. I'm calling from the White House. I'm like, okay, this is like a Nigerian fraud, right? You got like $5 billion to be given to you, right? Story, some princess is dead and all that. So I was about to hang up. She's like, no, I am calling from the White House. President Obama who wants to meet you. Please, this is the phone number, this is the switchboard number. Go check out the website. So I went and checked. I said, damn, this guy's a very good conman. The White House website looks pretty real. Anyway, I did call to the switchboard. It was. So Al Roth and I were our types invited to meet. So this was considered and was listed in the press release of Obama White House as one of the most innovative ideas in our. So
the video or the organ?
The video. So right now there are 58 or 57 OPOs. I've trained maybe more than a dozen of them, and they have their own videos or they can use my videos. We have them in Spanish and in English because Spanish is the kind of the more common language in Nevada, Arizona, Florida, in some parts of Georgia. And then the process I showed you is what they go through. So although OrganJet has saved about 600 lives, I believe this has created more than 1,000 organs that we do. right? Because each person can give so much. 58 OPOs, several donor coordinators, right? Every week, 2 people say yes. In 20 OPOs, right? You start getting 100, more than 100. So then some of them, I asked them to track how many of the ones that you thought, became a yes, right? So those 2 were kind of the main 2 things I did, and I felt that was kind of my contribution to organ transplantation. But then I became quite well known in that field. Right? So then I kept getting phone calls from UCSF to say, hey, we have other problems, Professor. In liver transplantation, for example, you have different sizes of liver that can come, different size of candidates that are waiting for liver, right? So large liver can go only to large candidate, the medium large can go to medium large or large, so you can do 1 down substitution. So think of it as first carbon, the downward substitution, right? So what happens is small candidates are disadvantaged because they can only take soup. And in liver, the policy until last year was something called MELD score, which is based on the urgency. And so if a small candidate with MELD score 28, medium candidate with MELD score 29, and a small organ came, who would get it? The medium person would get it. But by the time the next small one came, this person might have become 34. Right? Because of that inequality, we said, so we modeled this problem, we have PN guys, so optimal control, fluid model, etc. And we came up with an exception rule where you can see the dual value of, giving a certain organ to somebody. And basically what we said was, if you can give 1 or 2 extra points to the smallest, so if your real MELD is 28, call it 30. Okay. Then when a small liver comes, a medium person has 29, your real MELD is 28, but you will be called 30, you'll take. Right? Right? So, right? And that removes a lot of things. Okay, so this paper just got accepted in service science last. And this was one of the 2 things discussed by UNOS for implementation. Another, so this was work with UCSF. In parallel, but ahead of us, Stanford and I think Wisconsin said we want to revamp MELD and call it MELD 3.0, where in the calculation of MELD 3.0, they had put in some gender criteria. And MELD 3.0 also, if implemented, would remove this issue. And so I think late last year, UNOS approved MELD 3.0 for it. But if you had started at the same time, this might have been. But there was a lot of support in all the discussions we were mentioned. AJT had a special issue or some special thing about gender inequity, and our paper and the MELD 3.0 paper were featured as the 2 competing choices for UNOS to take. Anyway, UNOS is going through a lot of changes right now. There have been a lot of things going on, so this may be back on the table. So again, showing you how our work may inform decision making. What is the process of things getting implemented? The advantage of OrganJet and Nudge was I could just do it. Right? But if you want to change policy, you have to go through UNOS. So as you write papers in healthcare, you're going to ask yourself, how much of it can you do yourself, versus how much do you need to go through?
Sridhar?
Yes.
So in the last, there should be a gradation, right? Like, so if you adjust the MELD score for S, so then the bias for S reduces, then the second level candidates, they have less substitution opportunity. So their MELD adjustment.
So we give them 1 point, and then these guys get 0 and 0.
So everyone below that S gets 0?
Yeah. That is one option. Or they get 2 for higher MELDs, 1 for lower MELDs. This guy gets 1 for higher MELD, 0 for below. This guy gets 0 exception point for. And that jump will equalize the probability of transplant. That's right. You have to give differentiated.
How doesn't there be differentiation other from top to bottom?
No, but whatever you can do 4, 3, 2, 1, or you can do 2, 1, 0, 0. These two guys really don't. This guy might need it at higher values. Because when he's 33 and coming close to dying, you don't want that person to have a 2 gen. So they give him only a 1 gen. So give him 1. And when everybody has very low MEL, nobody gets anything because you're so far away from that stage. So that's what. So the dynamic exception points based on that turns out to be that one. Then, of course, in Europe, any large enough organ that can be medically safe to split, they split in France and in UK because they're very utilitarian. They want to maximize the number of lives. Okay. In the US, it's almost the opposite. The only time they split is if it's a baby. Because the baby needs to live. Otherwise, they don't split. Okay. So we wrote this paper, which I think won the PSOR Best Paper Award a couple years back, where we showed the dynamic policy of how to split. Now, why not split all the time? Because if you have a very large person who's waiting for a liver and is split it, then they're going to. So it depends on the state of the system. How many large people are waiting? How many medium people are waiting? So when do you split and who do you get it? So that's the MDP queuing time.
Can you split a large kidney and liver multiple times?
No, only 2. There are 2 ways of splitting into 2, but there are only 2. So these are again deceased donor transplants. These days, new technology has come for something called living liver transplant, where they can take a piece of your liver and give it to your baby. Like a mother can give it to a child because liver grows. So that's separate. I'm talking about the traditional disease lobe. There are 2 lobes, there are 2 ways of cutting it because of the bile duct and stuff like that, and those are the only 2 ways. So this is part of the paper. If you do optimal splitting, and given that only about 10 or 12% of all livers are medically splittable, if you have the heuristic in this country to say split everything splittable, it is nearly optimal. Okay. Right, because of the weight. But if 50% of the livers were splittable, then you have to be careful. You shouldn't split more than, right? Because then the target is up.
What determines whether a liver is splittable other than its size?
There are some other medical features that have been well documented. So only about 12% of them. It maybe depends on how they bind that, let's say. No. So that hopefully gives you a sense of some of the other, kind of organ transplant related, but not the first 2 projects that I did. In fact, I think I was telling some of you, I thought enough already. I want to move on from organ transplant. It's enough of my life. I got a call from UCSF just 2 weeks back to say, Sridhar, there's one more problem that we have. Do this one more thing. So I'm going to do one. Now, once I got into healthcare through organ transplants, I started thinking, well, if not supply chain and I'm doing organ transplant, might as well look at healthcare, more broadly. And again, I'm a very math modeling kind of a guy. So partly I try to look and see if there's an opportunity to do fun math. And one of the things that I really liked about OrganJet was queuing games, where you have game theory and queuing together. And so the over-testing paper was Ting Long's PhD thesis, was based on why is there over-testing, even if it's not fee for service. Right? I think that won some Best Paper Award in POMS. Then consistent care. Of course, it's sexy to do ML today. If you don't do ML, I given a lie. So, so why not? So liquid biopsy is another sexy thing. You know what liquid biopsy is? If you get cancer or you think you have cancer, you have to do the physical biopsy, which is very painful. If people suspect it, you have to do it. But the goal of liquid biopsy is if you can catch it much, much earlier and far less invasive, based only on the drop. Okay, you take the blood drop, there's something called cell-free DNAs that are floating around. And if you have cancer, then the occurrence of a certain kind of cell-free DNA will be higher than if you didn't have cancer. So then you take the blood test and you try to do ML on that blood by checking different genetic markers. And so there's a very nice Science and New England Journal of Medicine paper from Johns Hopkins that has a fixed panel on how to do liquid biopsy. Okay. We are all guys. So we ask ourselves, okay, it's an optimization problem. Right? Why should it be fixed? Why can't it be adaptive and sequential? Right? I look at some information and then check this and check that, right? And with the same amount of tests, if I can be adaptive and sequential, maybe I can tease out more information. Pierskalla Prize. And this was Kira's PhD thesis. She's now a professor. Okay. So again, showing you PhD students how you can take the math that we know in OR and maybe hit some things that matter to me. Bunch of papers. So I've been doing organ transplants for 13 years. Longer than many of you have thought about. As I said, I was trying to close it. I gave a talk, apart from writing these invited articles, I'm of an age where I get invited to give talks to PhD students. As I said, giving words of wisdom. So this is a slide that I created for one of those a couple of years back as to how do you select a problem? How do you choose what paper? Forget implementation. You just want to write papers, win awards, get tenure, become full, become chair, become university professor, become informs. That's all you want to do. Okay? No implementation thing, don't worry. Okay? Then, if that's all you want to do, I think what our community likes is there has to be some amount of news. So what papers get published in good journals and give you prizes? Right? You want management science, best paper award. That's what you do. Right? You don't want to be into this. Okay? You don't want an old problem and old technique because you just make it difficult for us. Nobody wants to publish. Even if they publish it, they're a little bit boring. Right? You have to pick something that's depending on your general interest. Some of you may be methodologically oriented. You like math and you want to advance the math. Right? You're on the upper end. You're saying, look, I'm a math guy. I don't mind what the problem is, but I want to show off. Then you want to be on the upper side. And when I was young, I was also like that. I'm a Cornell Award math award guy. So inventory theory was stochastic dynamic programming. I said, let me do everything. Integer programming is usually branch and bound and stuff like that. And I said, I'll do something called test search implementation. So that was simply to show off that my math is good. Please don't mess with me. Make sure I get my tenure and do not argue with me in public because look at those papers. I will humiliate you. Okay, so that's all it's called. Right? Right? That's all it is. That's all it is. Do not do this. Okay? Stay away. But really fun thing was on this. Right? You say, I want to combat child labor, MSOM Best Paper Award. I want to study split liver transplant, PSOR Best Paper Award. I want to study OrganJet, Pierskalla, liquid biopsy, Pierskalla. So this side is all, right? Fun, right? So again, as PhD students are thinking, what should be a PhD topic? How do I write a paper? How do I get tenure, full chair, and then go through this sweetly? Here's one. So let me close with my last one. Why does a university exist? So who wrote this? So you heard of a guy called Bertrand Russell? He had a co-author called Alfred North Whitehead. Okay, so this is Whitehead. In 1932, he said, why do universities exist? What are they? Okay. And when I was a kid, I read this and I said, I want to be a professor. Right? Because I want to be a university professor. That's what I want to be. Why? Because this is the creation. Okay, that's it. That's better. We met 4:30. We good?
Yeah.
Okay. Any final questions, or am I between you and your cookie?
So what is the incentive of the for the OrganJet? Like people who own the pilots?
Oh, they get paid for they're not doing it for free. They get paid.
But is it like a subscription model or is it
No, a spot on. Spot on. Pure spot. We just what they do when we send out a request, they'll say, I have a Learjet 45. For this, I'm willing to do it for 21,200. So I get 4 bids. Somebody will say, I got citation X, I'll do it for 18,400. Right? So basically, people send me bids. This is my plane. This is the price. And I also know the travel time, hour 45, hour 40, something like that. So I basically get typically 3 to 4 bids back. And it's an option.
So I've never tried to charter a private jet, but like, do these sorts of spot markets just exist generally and you're participating in them? Or do you actually have to create a spot market?
There are 3 ways, let's say there are 4 ways you can get private. One is you own it outright. Right? Second is you become a member of NetJets or something like that, where you pay some fixed fee, and then you get to use. The third is you call up and you can charter a jet, and typically they want 24, 48 hours, right, to give you a charter. Say you and your girlfriend want to go to some and charter your own jet. You can make a phone call, right? Then you can do it.
But so the problem is it's not fast.
It's not fast. It's not fast. So what you need is enough response in about 2.5, right? So that you cannot do use. So what I've done is I've spoken and there were some brokers already, but I've created now a network of brokers. And I've also contacted all the owners who know of my existence, so that we have all their emails, right? And things of that type. So that when the broadcast goes out, they'll get it. And then I get the result. Typically in practice, what happens is, suppose you're climbing up on the liver transplant list, suppose, right? You've been waiting for some time. The transplant center gives you a heads up as a patient, saying that you're near the top. It's going to happen in the next few days. We don't know when, because somebody has to die. We don't. Right? So we typically tell the patient or the coordinator, when you get that call, just give us a heads up. Because I mean, I can do spot, but give me a little bit of heads up, right? So usually when for example, the Boston to Mayo, I had about a 2 or 3 day heads up to say she's near the top. So I had already broadcast out and say, I don't know when it's going to happen, but it looks like it'll happen in the next 3 or 4 days. And some of them said, oh, call me when it's done. I don't know. Some of us will say, okay, if it's the next 2 or 3 days, I suppose I could more or less commit to. And if I'm going to pick one, then I don't have to wait the full 2.5 hours, right? Because he knows it's there. But typically what happens is the pilot has to come, he has to fuel, he has to get the FAA approval, he has to get the manifest done. So, I mean, there's a minimum of 1 hour, 1.5 hours just to get all the paperwork done, because you have to lock in the time. The FAA has a lot of regulatory requirements.
So there's so much amount of time, the patient may as well just go to the place.
Yeah, sometimes you can, and sometimes I have cousins there and they just move. Cornell professor took a sabbatical and just moved there for 6 months. So yeah, you can do that. But some others are working. Yeah. I don't know, kids at home, I mean, whatever. So there are all those. Yeah. There was one situation where it was a 9-year-old girl. It was interesting. I didn't know this because in the beginning I would get phone call and it was a phone call and then it was an email saying, hey, I want to speak to you. And all I saw was it was a priest from church. And I thought, oh my God, I'm going to get some lecture from some Catholic guy. What I'm doing. And so I picked up the phone and tried to be calm. And he said, oh, Professor Tayur. I said, yes. He said, oh, I'm a priest, in Colorado. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to get a lecture on in Christ and Jesus and all that. And no, he has a 9-year-old daughter dying of liver transplant. So he apparently gave his Sunday sermon, right, to his congregation and said, pray for me and our family. Our daughter has been diagnosed with this. And she doesn't have much time left, so please pray. Right? And after that meeting or whatever sermon, apparently one of the congregation went up and said, Father, have you heard of OrganJet? He said, no, so they went and Googled it. And OrganJet came up. So he sent me, he called me up and said, Jesus has answered my call. I said, I think it's Google, but anyway, it's okay. Whatever. But when your daughter is dying, I think God becomes very important. And so I'm just facilitating. So basically, and he didn't want this. He wants his daughter to be home until the phone call. So there are many situations you might actually use it.
So why is like OrganJet? I mean, does it consider like having its own some fleet of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the asset light model.
But you can actually do pool the uncertainty when the demand will arrive. You can pool it and purchase capacity in advance. 2 days ahead. So in the next few days,
all of that has not been done.
So very sparse.
Yeah. I mean, right now, you asked me, do I guarantee it? No. Have I ever encountered a situation where I didn't get a jet in timely enough fashion? No. I mean, for me to start doing those kinds of things, I mean, there has to be a reason for it. So it's not.
You have a kind of situation where you have the multiple bits, so to speak, you have to make a choice.
And I let the patient make it. Or the insurance company. I just send the bids. I don't know. I just forward all the bids.
Do the insurance companies respond in such timely manner?
Those who have been trained, yeah, they have a process. If you read my paper, you see the process that we put on a lot of privately and private employer private insurance. They do. So they, what happens is, suppose you're Walmart, your senior executives have this. Insurance company is just a operator of this, but they put the money, everybody has been trained. The minute you get on the dialysis list, you get multiple listed. And they actually have a deal with the Mayo clinics. That's in the 3 Mayo clinics. And they fly their executive to one of the 3 Mayo clinics. And because they're going to give all the business to Mayo, Mayo then gives them a quantity discount on the transplant. So yeah, all the traditional business things that you would expect are this. It just so happens that it's a life and death thing that you don't think falls into this category of having a process flow map and quantity discounts, and right? You think of that as if I buy 1 million of these, I should get a quantity discount. But Mayo Clinic gives you a quantity discount if you.
Do you face any like geographical challenges in creating small markets? And how do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, first of all, the good news, because where are most of the people who are waiting for long? They're in New York, which means that Teterboro is going to have a. They're in Boston, which means that Bedford is going to have a flight. Chicago, right? So this is not a worst case analysis of a graph. I mean, right? The issue is where people are waiting the longest is also the place where most private jets are likely to be around. Now, of course, if you happen to be in Colorado, which was a bit of an issue, right? Because it's not a very high place. So that would, be a flight in Chicago or something. Typically what happens is that's the deadhead, right? That is, the flight is not very late, right? So that's the deadhead. It's like the positioning has to be done. The advantage of Boston, New York, Chicago, San Fran, LA is typically most billion. The planes are there. So I don't know if you ever gone to Teterboro, have you seen? Have you know where Teterboro is in New Jersey? Or White Plains in New York? And they go to those airports, you will see fleets and fleets of private jets. I'm not talking 2 or 3, I'm talking 60. Okay. In fact, you need to be taken in a car to your private jet because it's that far away. And you don't know which one is yours. Because there could be like 9 citation visits. It's amazing. The first time I went, I was like, whoa. Who are all these rich people?
In the interest of time, I
Sorry, I had to just
one question.
I remember I saw some articles saying that people start to sort of use animal organs and so on. So does that change the landscape or your model?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the potential Nobel Prize in 20 years. Mass General just announced, I think, some genetically modified liver of a pig or something that can be put into human, and the person didn't die within 24 or 48 hours, right? Yeah. So this dream of xenotransplantation has been around for about 30 years. Every few years, people try something, but people don't live longer than 3-4 days. But it also be the case that the people that they're experimenting on, they have said, look, I have no other option, I'll do it. So, I mean, right? I think the Mass General example that came out, in the last 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Is probably the first.
I think that's first the liver, and there was a kidney transplant maybe last year.
But that didn't last for too long.
Yeah, but it was on the order of weeks. It was the first.
It was a heart transplant a few years ago. It was also on the order of a few weeks.
Yeah. So it's there. The other dream is 4D printing. 3D printing, but live stuff, right? So soft tissues, I think, to create 4D printing is a possibility. Again, very early in this process, there could be experiments being done here and there. So if you think, who are these people doing it? They are tenure track professors, associate professors trying to win their Nobel Prize, right? I mean, they're trying to publish the paper in a journal of surgery and things of that type, right? And then say, there you go, and 47 years later, they'll get the phone call at 4 a.m. Right? I got the Nobel Prize. Right? Yeah. So yeah, it will happen. I mean, if you think about it, when was the first transplant done? Kidney transplant, 1950. Right? 1950, identical twin brothers, living donation. Took one and put the other. That was 1950. Okay, in Boston, right? So that was the 1990 Nobel Prize. Right? And then the problem was rejection, right? So somebody had to invent immunosuppressants, Nobel Prize for chemistry, right? Then that allowed for non-related deceased donor transplants and started scaling, right? So, right? And so you see this Nobel Prize is coming. So my guess is if either the 4D printing or the xenotransplantation and all of that become a reality, those will be your colleagues in medical school, picking up the Nobel Prize and, you know. That's the Nobel Prize, physiology and medicine or chemistry.
Okay. On that note, I'm going to call the official part of the seminar over with the speakers around. So if you have questions, please stay. But please thank the speakers.